Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome back. Hey, Howard, how are
Hello.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fantastic on this beautiful, it's not really morning. I guess technically it's afternoon as of this moment.
I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. I don't know anything anymore.
Doesn't really matter. As long
No,
as you're having a good
doesn't.
time at this point, like it's a win.
Yeah.
Hello, chat. Nice to see you all here. Let us know if you're having a good time. Also, let us know where you are in the world. I know that I like to say good morning a lot because I usually stream in the mornings here in California, but a lot of you around the world. So let's see if we have friends from India, Brazil. We've had friends from Russia before. So let me know where
Hmm.
you are. And today we have the man, the myth, the legend with us, Mr. Howard Pinsky. Howard, do you want to intro yourself? Tell people where they can follow you. Are you on the internet at all?
Occasionally.
Okay, yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to be on the internet, but here I am. Yeah, my name's Howard Pinsky. I work for Adobe. I'm a XD evangelist focused on Adobe XD and been designing for, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. It's been a journey. It's been a fun journey. And watching design change constantly has been very exciting. And we're just actually talking at work this week about what the future of design looks like. How is it going to change in the 5 years and 10 years? And I don't even know if we can predict that because we can't predict what devices are going to be available in 5 or 10 years. Heck, the iPhone is barely 10 years old, right?
Yep. That's
So,
crazy to think about.
yeah,
That's
don't know.
wild.
Don't know.
Before we jump in, we need your hot take. What is something, do you have anything that you think is like a controversial opinion for where you think design is going in 5 years?
Where do I think? That's an interesting question.
Right?
I think there's going to be a lot of AR and VR. I think that's a given. AR, so VR seems to be more hyped and talked about in the media because it's very immersive and you put the thing on your head and you look like a dork sometimes. But I really believe that AR, augmented reality, is going to be what everyone uses in the future. Small groups of people will use VR.
Yep.
Because it's one of those things that it's not convenient. You can't just go on a bus and walk down a street with a big VR headset on, right?
Yes.
But AR, you can. It'll be built into our glasses. Eventually, it'll be built into our brains.
I'm ready.
See you, Elon Musk. And it'll just give us seamless information. And that's the thing I'm really excited about is, if I'm at a conference and I walk up to Andrew and I don't remember his name, like a little thing will just kind of pop up over his name, almost like a plumb bob from The Sims. And it'll just say, that's Andrew. And he won't see it. No one else will see it, but I will.
Yes. And I love that chat is all saying Google Glass. Yes, Google Glass is ready for a comeback. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
It's true.
The thing with Google Glass is it was a fun early concept and it kind of showed the possibilities. And I think these early concepts, even though I guess you can call it failed, they're necessary to really show what the future looks like. Very similar to the Microsoft HoloLens.
Yep.
It was like $3,000, ridiculous. No consumer is going to buy it, but it was a proof of concept and it showed us what's possible. And it kind of inspired all these other companies to do something similar. So, I have to imagine that Apple and Facebook and Google and who knows who else, they're very much working on glasses and contact lenses that we might not see for the next 5 years or so. And contacts, maybe not for the 10 or 15, but they're coming. And
Absolutely.
That's what really excites me about the future. Yep. Of course, we're going to see additional platforms like cars really take off. We have some cars have screens and Apple CarPlay and things like that. The experiences are, they're fun, but they're not great. And they're certainly not smart. I think once we start seeing these experiences smarten up, that's where things get interesting.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting. We'll look at it kind of in the iterative process, but the idea that sometimes things have to fail so that better things can come along. Rest in peace, MoviePass. But we are going to do that on our stream as we watch. We actually talked about that yesterday of we have to kind of make it bad before it's good. And so do you want to talk a little bit about what we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, and kind of what this weird crossover stream is all about?
Yeah, so yesterday, Andrew took on the part of making it bad. And today I'm taking on the part of making it good. So it's a wonderful stream. I enjoy
exactly
this.
That. Wow, what a pitch and a home run. Bravo on that, Howard. So yeah, yesterday we were working in XD. We designed a site web experience for our show, Adobe Office Hours, which happens every Friday at 2:30. Be sure to tune in. And we created a web experience for that, and then we made it in Photoshop. And today we're going to be taking it over into XD and making it real. Right? I kind of threw a bunch of plates in the air, and they're going to land today and be served at a 5-star Michelin restaurant, which Howard owns. So Howard, do we want to jump in and kind of talk through the workflow we're going to try to do today?
Yeah. So, and I think it's important to reiterate the question that we saw a few times yesterday is, why are we even doing this? Like, why is Andrew designing in Photoshop if we're only going to open it up in XD? Just do it in XD, right? And I think to Andrew's point yesterday, it's all about what you're comfortable working in. You know, if you're comfortable in Photoshop, you've been using it for who knows how long, 20 years maybe, you can just start in Photoshop and then move on to XD and do some, do whatever you do, right? And XD really allows you to expand upon that functionality. Prototyping, scroll groups, repeat grids, and things like that. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. And yeah, I think we should just dive into things and get going. So this is the design that Andrew came up with yesterday. This one right here. And it's a Photoshop file. And what I can do is I can just drag it into Adobe XD. And here it goes.
Ooh.
We need to improve design style guide in XD like Figma. Yes. Yeah. Design systems, style guides, all that, asset management, things like that. All of that's top of our mind. Some of it's actively in the works. Some of it's a lot closer than you might think, but it's an iterative process. So it'll get better over time as customers really hone in on what they're looking for. But yeah, definitely something we're focused on. We're not ignoring it.
Darina, I've got to watch yesterday's replay. Yes, you can watch the replay. I believe that it hangs out down below this video. You can watch and catch up of us fumbling around in Photoshop creating this web experience. Also, there is a tab for Artist Spotlight today, but we don't have an Artist Spotlight today. Our Artist Spotlight is a little known person. His name's Howard Pinsky. You can check his stuff out on Behance if you want. But if you want to nominate someone, you can do it over there in that tab as well for a future stream. And Howard, our Photoshop file is open in XD. This is crazy.
Yeah. And everything came over, all the groups and layers, and thank you to some of this stuff.
That was the majority of my time.
Photoshop files before is just like an explosion of stuff, and it's like, no, I don't want to deal with this. Take it back and redo it. It's like I'm at a restaurant. I like to speak to the manager. Please rearrange these layers and get back to me. But yeah, everything came over great, and I could start going through and adding my character styles and colors. Or Andrew was nice enough as he was building out that process. If I go back to my libraries, I have the shared office hours styles library, right?
Yes.
And here we go.
A couple things in there as you go. So continue on and we may see some updates popping up there.
You know what I'd love for you to do, Andrew, if you have some time, is this section here. And by the way, I'm going to be talking to Andrew a lot throughout this stream because it's very important to make sure we're all in the same creative wavelength. I'm going to try to do some crazy things during this 2 hours, but maybe Andrew doesn't like some of that stuff. So, but anyways, I have the season cards, but for this information here, the text information, I would love if you had a moment, if you can fill out like a Google document or like a Google spreadsheet.
Okay.
One column is just the title of whatever it is. And then the second column is a little bit of a description, like 1 sentence, 2 sentence, something like that.
Totally.
Just so I can kind of streamline the process and make it easier. So what we're going to do today is, now that it's in Adobe XD, is we might just work top to bottom. We're going to work on this big section at the top here. And I know Andrew had some ideas on, making component states so that all of this is very interactive. So Andrew, if you want to talk about what your idea was for this area and how the transitions are going to take place.
Yeah. So, and again, it's fun working with Howard because he knows what's actually possible. And my brain, I'm just like, I don't know, like maybe this idea. And so it's fun to collaborate like this to see what is actually possible. So my thought was that if you hit that one of those arrows that's over there, that would kind of shift. It would kind of shift each element almost. So where that the title art could change, or the text could change, the background could change. So it could kind of shift. But not necessarily as like a whole card, as like kind of elements shifting.
Okay. I do have some ideas.
Okay.
And we can experiment. We can have some fun. And I don't know if they're going to work because I haven't had much time to even think about this. I was telling you earlier about some of the meetings I've been in this week. Yeah, but let's have some fun. Let's go for it. Now, another thing that I did this morning is I grabbed some stock images and some stock illustrations. I thought it'd be kind of fun to bring in some of these things just to brighten it up and add some, different flares to this design. So,
ooh,
yeah, this is an Illustrator file. I'm also going to drag this into XD, which is great. You can open up Photoshop files, Illustrator files, sketch documents, and all of it is vector based.
Yes. So I love when the bar pops up, and it happens in like any Adobe program to where the bar pops up that doesn't like really have anything on it. It's just like, hey, hold on, we're doing some magic and like we'll be with you in just a sec. And then it opens and you're like, it did it.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I want to bring some of that into this top section. I'm also going to, we have this blue bar at the top. I don't like it. I'm going to delete it.
Cool.
There you go. And you'll probably see why in a moment. So I'm going to paste in this document or this illustration. And by the way, you can also, in addition to dragging in Illustrator files into XD, you can also go up to the file menu down to import, and you can basically import it into this document. So you don't have two documents floating around. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to center this. Now, one thing that we might run into is it's kind of distracting. There's a lot going on inside of this illustration, which could cause some problems with the text. So we're gonna make a few changes here. One, I am actually gonna dive in here, and we have these two lovely individuals. So I'm gonna copy this guy. Actually, I'll copy him. You know what? I'm gonna copy both of them. Copy them, pop them outside of here, and maybe this one on the right can kind of just be hanging out over here with her little s'mores.
Ooh.
I don't remember the last time I've eaten s'mores.
You know what? I don't either. My way of making s'mores is totally the worst and wrong way. I burn the marshmallow completely, and then I peel off the burnt layer like an onion. And so I don't eat the marshmallow. I just peel off the outside burned layer and then burn it again and then peel off the burn. And I just eat like charred sugar. It's nasty. It's gross. It's so gross, but I love it.
It's so good. That's just humanity. It's so gross, but I love it.
That's so true.
Yeah. If anyone in the chat has suggestions as we're going through, I don't know if my chat froze or everyone got grossed out by Andrew's
right.
s'mores.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Oh no, there it goes. Okay. Yeah. If you have suggestions, throw it in the chat and we'll take a look. Okay. Everyone's yum craving.
Yes.
Probably for the s'mores comment, not
exactly. Yes. We definitely want today to be super collaborative. Again, yesterday we laid some groundwork, and then Howard is collaborating with me, and we both want to collaborate with you. So if you have suggestions, ideas, pretty much anything, go ahead and toss it in there. And if you're part of our office hours fam, put a little heart in there. Say hi to us.
Yeah. Why not? Right. All right. So what I might want to do here is on this background, because again, it's a little bit difficult to read. We might want a little bit of an overlay. So I'm going to just grab a rectangle, drag one out, and we'll experiment with some colors and some blend modes.
Ooh.
So let's go for a pink. Now, obviously that's just weird, right? But if we do something like maybe soft light or overlay, it just tones it down a little bit.
Oh.
It sets a bit of an atmosphere, right? There's a before and an after.
Ooh, it's so sunsetty.
Just a little bit. It also helps with readability a little bit. Of course, you can darken it a touch if you need to, Or what you can also do is do something like a linear gradient, right? And the bottom color might be a little bit darker, and the top color might be a little bit lighter. Just so down at the bottom, there's a little bit more, again, of that readability there. I might also dive in, grab this text file. I know you had it set to book, but I might try regular or medium.
Yep, it's feeling a
bump it
little
up
lost.
a little bit. Yeah, because we have this nice bold header, and then we had a book character style below it. So
Yep.
it was kind of
Will you ever
saying, I'm looking in
add
the bushes.
like drop shadows to text, or is that like a big no-no for you?
I try not to.
Yep.
But there are some cases if the background is too crazy. I think we mentioned this yesterday. Your goal as a designer is to try to not need a shadow.
Yep.
You might want a shadow just to add a little bit of a cherry on top and a fun. You're going to see some of that a little bit later when we get down to probably this section here, but try not to.
Yep, absolutely. And somebody asked, why is the artboard narrower than graphic? The artboard is just kind of the active area that we're showing. And that was a really, really wide graphic. And so we may use different pieces of it or whatnot, but we really wanted to position it so that that fireplace was in a really nice kind of tucked in spot. So it is a larger graphic, but the artboard is just what will be shown on the screen. So we have a little bit of extra.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is, because we want to incorporate these into the overall design, I'm actually going to pull them out just so I can kind of all see them. And I know you have these fun textures. I'm going to see if I can incorporate those as well. So we're going to start off with this. Now, again, there's some issues here, right? There's, the button is a little bit difficult to see. This blue against the bluish purple background, a little bit difficult as well. I don't think a shadow in that case will help.
Yep.
Maybe a border, possibly. Let's just see, just to see what that would look like.
And this even could be something, we're just throwing out ideas as we go, that this graphic that we have in that background starts on the far left. And then as you scroll through seasons, it just moves a little bit each time and then ends up on the far right. And then that saves us from having to do anything different, that it's just kind of those little nudges. So it kind of sweeps the scene as it goes through.
Right. We also have a problem noticing now is this, illustration is covering one of the arrows. So
that's true.
Yeah, so we can, grab these arrows, maybe move them up a little bit. Would that make sense? I don't know. And these are all things we experiment with.
We're just figuring out, and it looks like we got into a time zone party into chat. So it's nice to see you all tuning in. We've got people, it's in the afternoon, middle of the night in India. My goodness, in California, peeps, what's up? And yes, Andrea says inner shadow. I'm sure that we will get those today, right, Howard?
Oh, we're going to have all the inner shadows.
All the inner shadows.
Now, another thing I want to tackle is this button down here. A little bit difficult to see. Could be, thinking about, we're going with illustrations. We're trying to brighten this up, make it a little bit more fun. I grabbed some additional assets from Adobe stock, including these little guys here.
Oh, those are cute.
This could be interesting. Yeah, this could be interesting. So I'm going to open up this in XD as well. And you can also open this up in Illustrator and copy and paste it in.
And it's something you don't need to open and copy and paste. You can literally just pull it from XD into XD, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
It's in XD right now. I can just copy it over here and then paste it. Or like I talked about earlier, you can just import it directly into this document. It makes it a bit bigger. And then on top of here, tune in. Maybe we'll make this nice and bold since it's a call to action. And then, the white is a bit tricky because we do have some lighter elements on this background piece. So what we might try is, go a little bit darker, which already looks okay. But, we're having fun today. So if we experiment with a blend mode like hard light, for example, you're gonna notice that it just subtly brings in some of that background. It's not too much. Something like soft light or overlay might be a little bit too washed out. And then multiply might just be too dark. So hard light, and of course it depends on the background, depends on your text, depends on a lot of things. But going back to Andres, inner shadows, right?
Yes.
So we can start with an inner shadow. We can bump it down on the Y a little bit. We probably don't need as much blur. And then we can bump this up a touch. Woo, look at that. It's a little bit too much. It's a bit much.
Gives it a like carved in look.
Yeah. And then to add to that carved in look, I'm going to add a drop shadow. Now, this is not your typical that, right? Don't do that. Please don't do that. Never. In this case, we're looking for more of a highlight, because you can imagine the light is hitting the bottom. So there might be a little bit of a ridge down there. So in this case, we're going to start with white.
I was going to say, you're going to do a drop shadow of white and then sell it as a highlight with the drop shadow.
Yeah.
That's magic.
So we'll do something like maybe 2 for the Y, 1 for the blur. It's still not looking great, right? So let's bring in some color. You know, we're working with these woodsy tones. So if we bring in some oranges and reds and things like that.
That's cool.
We need and of course, you know, things will look a little bit different zoomed in than it will zoomed out. And I can drop the opacity so it blends in a little bit. Oops. You know, it's getting there.
Yep. And I love we're 20 minutes into the stream, and the differences in someone who works mostly in like editorial branding, does some web stuff, that it's kind of very like, okay, here's boxes, here's whatever. And then someone who has the flair that works in this all the time, like you do, that it's already a completely new experience. That's the same idea, but just leveled up to a whole nother level, which I think it's so important to collaborate with someone who is like a professional in the space, like you, Howard.
Yeah, thank you. But I will say that a lot of times this is not necessary. And I want to make that clear.
Yes.
Because in a lot of the shots that I post on Dribbble or Twitter or whatever, they're very over the top because I can, right? I'm not handing them off to a developer to do this stuff. But if you are working on actual products or projects and you want to go a little bit further and do things like this, right? Talk to your developer. Now, something like this would be probably pretty simple, because they just need this asset here, which you can mark for export. So you can provide that asset to your developer. You can export it as SVGs and that sort of thing, because it is a vector graphic and the text is just text, right? But anything further than that, talk to your developer so that they know exactly what's going on.
Yep.
So I'm going to group these two. I'm going to call this, wood button, or maybe button wood, whatever.
And Val says, it's not looking great as he works actual magic. Yes, that's how I feel watching a lot of these streams here on Adobe Live, is the conversations of like, yeah, we're still getting there. And you're like, this is totally magical. And that's the fun of design, is being able to watch and learn all together here on Adobe Live all day.
Yeah. And as designers, and you know this, Andrew, we're never happy, right? We can create the most magical thing in the world that everyone loves, and then it'll be 2 a.m. and you'll be thinking about that one small pixel that might have been off that you just let slide when you uploaded it, and it'll bother you for the rest of your life.
For literally the rest of your life. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So now that I've created this wood button, I might want to use it in various other areas, or I might want to create some component states or different versions of it. So I am actually going to go back to my document assets, and I'm going to press the plus button. Boop. And I now have a component of this wood button. And I also can do that in my properties inspector to the right. And we have our default state. So if we did want to create hover states and things like that, which we're going to get to, I can certainly do that as well. Now, the nice thing about components, if you are new to XD, haven't used them yet, is that if you create duplicates, which are called instances, and you need to make some changes, maybe this one we're going to change to watch, maybe just watch, right? What's cool is, even though that was changed, if we need to change the overall style of maybe this wood button, whatever it might be, as we're making those changes, it also pushes the changes to the instances. So everything remains in sync and all that fun stuff. So it's quite powerful. And of course, you can create states.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's great that, you know, if we put that there in a whole bunch of different places and we're like, oh, maybe we don't want the wings on it, we don't have to go back and find every place that the wings are. We just delete them and then we just have the one sign together.
I like that example. So
Magic.
again, you know, if I duplicate a few of these and I dive in here, hate the wings, boop, and boop, no more wings, right?
Magic.
There you go. All right. So what I want to focus on now is consolidating, and I don't like these arrows. I mean, I like the arrows. I just don't like the position of them.
Yep.
And I think it, you know, it's my fault because I added this illustration over top of it. I think it looks better centered. Wherever the center, there it is, something like that. And then maybe if I move this over as well, I know you were kind of mentioning that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I can move that background image over as well. Let's see, where is it? There it is. Just so that fire is kind of in the middle. We'll run with that. And maybe, there we go. Now we can still see the button. All right. So what I want to do now is really start consolidating some of this information. So we have all these different cards all over the place. They're all color coded, but knowing that we're going to create different states as part of one component, we want to bring everything in one place. And we really want to start thinking this through. How is the text going to change? How is the header going to change? Are the buttons going to change? Is the image going to change? Do we want animation? There's a lot of things we have to think about as we're building these experiences. And I'm looking at this shirt in the background. Let's see if I can actually get rid of this shirt. Just because it's causing some potential issues back there.
Yes.
Okay. Dive in there. Or I can move it over. Possibly. It's all vector, so I can just delete it or move it.
The joys of vector pieces.
I know.
That's what I love about stock stuff. And there's so many times that I'll get a stock image for one specific thing. Like, okay, the rest of this can go away, but like this specific thing right here is the thing that I want. And I love that this has like, oh, you need a shirt? Let's move the shirt. You need a towel? Let's move the towel.
Yeah. Look, now it's windy.
It's a windy
I don't know
shirt.
if we're going to keep it like that, but we'll run with it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so let's start off with the featured image. Because that's going to be the highlight, I would imagine. So what we're going to do is, so Andrew, which is it doesn't matter. Yeah. Which would be the next one?
I would say maybe the green top right, the summer camp.
Okay. So I'm going to grab this image. I'm going to pop it here. I think that'll look good without any sort of borders or shadows or anything.
I agree. We should start with that one.
Ooh,
I know that's
hey, right? We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, I feel like that fits more to start with the summer camp and then move into the other ones.
Okay.
And someone says that shirt's awfully close to the fire. It is. We like to live dangerously here.
or it could be like in the background, there's like some parallax going on.
Ooh.
I don't know. Or everything's gonna get burnt down. Could be fun.
One of the two. Who knows? If you've ever watched Office Hours,
the tombstone from yesterday come into play.
That's it. Yeah. So if you ever watched Office Hours, we've always described it as constantly being on fire. So it feels right. It feels right for the vibe of the show.
Yeah. All right. Which one is after? So we have green, and then we have our blue.
And then let's do the orange down there, bottom right.
All right.
And then we'll go the top left to the rescue. And then over into the fall semester, which is the middle right.
Rescue. Copy that. Pop it in here. Where did it go? Oh, no. Oh, there was another piece that...
Yes, shameless plug as Howard works on this. So there are 5 seasons of Office Hours, which is crazy. And it's a show, if you guys have never joined us, every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This Friday, we're doing a design off, and we're doing it with you. Something unique to Office Hours is we leverage our Discord community a lot. We hop into voice chat. We hang out live on the actual stream. And so we'll be designing along you and doing some work. And you guys will be posting in Discord. We'll be having a little voice chat and all hanging out together on the show. So make sure you tune in this Friday, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and have your Illustrator, have your Photoshop just up and ready to go, because we're going to hit the ground running. It's going to be a fun time. Or XD if you want to be working in XD.
Okay, so I have all of the images in. And make sure this is centered. That could work. All right. Now thinking about the text, I want to explore a more clever way to transition that text.
I love it.
And also maybe change the background a little bit so that it kind of matches the images. Now we have these overlays, which I forgot to unhide. And I think it'd be interesting if we have the overlays change. Yeah.
Yes. I get where you're going. Like a color tone to kind of match the vibe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one's going to be, this is like a purplish. Well, we need like a green. So I'm going to, ooh, that was, oh, I moved it. My bad. Okay.
This just makes me want to go camping. And I hate camping, but like something about this image is like, ooh, I want to be there.
I don't know if you can pay me to go camping. There's like bugs and stuff.
That's true.
I don't like bugs. I see like a little spider crawling in our garage and I'm like, no, I'm out. Burn the house down. We're done.
Yep. I was sleeping. And again, I'm just so off track today, but I was cleaning my room, doing my laundry and took my pillowcase off my pillow. And there was a dead spider inside my pillowcase. And so I no longer live in a house. I have burnt it to the ground and I will never sleep again.
There you go. All right. So we're going to do more of a red. Now it's interesting once you, because we're using blend modes and they all interact differently with the background, may need to experiment with the different kinds. Like, of course, something like color will certainly get you there, but it's going to affect everything else.
Yes.
So color, may not be the right option in that case. Multiply might be too dark.
Yep. And the way that I like to think about if you're wondering what blending mode to do, the top section I like to call darkeners, multiply, darken, those all make it darker. Then the next section is lighteners, overlay, soft light, those all make it lighter. And then the rest are augmenters that will change a color, change luminosity. And so I usually scroll through and I'm like, oh, it needs to feel darker. I'll scroll through those first top three. Oh, it needs to feel lighter. Scroll through the next one. So it saves a little bit of time from clicking on every one as you go. But especially if you're working in Photoshop, they have live previews. So you can kind of just hover over and go up and down and see what happens.
Yeah. And I suppose this could potentially work. It almost looks like, I was experimenting with the other ones and this one almost looks like the forest fire has started already.
Yes, so it's very post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, I'm going to probably not do that. I don't think a background blur will work very well, but I always like to try. Yeah, no, let's not do that. Okay, so we have red, we have green, we have purple. What other colors do we have? It'd be yellow, possibly. White, red, or orange maybe, which might be similar to red, but we'll see.
Even if it's a small tonal shift, I think that that's going to be really interesting to have that like mood, especially with the illustration. Like we said, it just feels like a mood, and any augmentation you do to that, especially in some kind of interactive way, makes it feel as the user for me that like I'm doing something or like I'm making the tone and the feel change. And I think it just makes me connect to the page all that more.
Yeah. And if we really wanted to get very precise with this, we can move the overlay into the group with the illustrations, make sure it's behind all the shirts and stuff, and then use something like color or hue, right? Which will affect the background a little bit stronger, which we can't really do right now because it's on top of everything, but that's okay.
Yep.
All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that, oh, there was one more. There was like a blue, right? Yeah, there was a blue. Maybe that's just like the vanilla standard. Has a
standard Behance blue.
Yeah, that could just be the standard one that with no overlay. Okay.
Yep.
So we have our overlays. Everything's looking good. This is the illustration. And now I want to think about the text because we have this lovely text up here, and I want to find a clever way of transitioning it. Now, of course, if you're talking to your developer and they're like, we'll just change the text, a fade or a cut or something, just go with that because that's maybe all they're capable of. Maybe we can have some fun with it because we can, right? So we're going to start off. You said we're going to start off with, actually, let's see, green, blue. Okay, yeah. We can start off with this green one. And I might want to just kind of, do I want to do that?
And yes, chat is losing their mind that the arrows are not centered on the image on either side. It looks like the left one is a little bit further. It feels like it's censored though. Oh no, it's maybe a little bit off. We love you, chat. We're here to help you.
Oh, it is. Thank you, chat.
Eagle eyes chat right here. That's why we collaborate together. And I'm almost done with those descriptions for the slider where we're going next.
Sweet. Okay, I think that's a bit better. Possibly 56.
Satisfied, chat? We good?
56. There you go.
There we go.
All right. Hope you're happy, chat. All right. So back to this. So we have our, so this one, the creative community camp out. So that one's going to be the first. And I'm going to group this. This will be text. And we're going to start off with this one. And it's going to look very crazy right now, but bear with me. And then we want this one. Put that right there. Now, another thing we have to think about is this text over here. I know you had like this brownish, goldish, orangish color, right?
Yes, that's gonna have to die.
That might have to change. Yep. Possibly. I don't know. Let's see. It's not terrible, but it probably has to change.
Yes, the ultimate feedback. I don't hate it, but like it's not good. If everything else is white, it doesn't make sense for it to be a different color.
Yeah. And I'm just experimenting with blend mode just because you never know
what happens. Yep.
And we talked very busy.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday that a lot of times if you are editing or you have ideas at one point in the process and you get to a point to where you ask yourself, like, why does this idea have to be there? If you don't have a good answer for it, usually just delete it. It usually is just there because at some point your brain was like, oh, I want to do this. And then you realize, oh, I need to not do this. Even though I want to, I need to not. And so the fact that that was orange doesn't really make sense. There's not really a reason for it other than like, it looks cool. And so it makes sense to just change it to white.
Yeah. All right. So I've got all the text layers. Again, they're looking kind of nutty, but it'll all make sense very soon, hopefully. So we've got the first one. This one relates to your creative community camp out. So that one we actually want to stay up here. And the next image is going to be blue. So that one was the original one, the portfolio review, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to put this right there.
Oh. It looks like chaos, but I know we're about to have magic.
I hope so. Your new workflow on the go. You never know with these things. I could look at it and it just doesn't look. Just doesn't work. Pop that.
Insanity, are we qualified to look for them? Yes, you all are very qualified in chat. I'm sure you've designed before. I'm sure that you have eyes that are not our eyes. And that's what makes design fun and interesting is the way that you say things. And so we will say them very differently from the way that you will say them. And so we love your opinions and your perspectives as well, because it's magical when we all have different perspectives.
Indeed.
And a question from Mohammed. There are some passion projects that I make for a fake company. How could I send it to you guys on a Friday to give me feedback on the project? Very easy. You can do that in our Discord. You can go to, I believe the link is bit.ly/OH and then cabin chat. One of the mods can post a link for you there. And you can just scroll down to the office hours section, which is over on the left, and just drop that into homework, drop that into summer camp, either one of those channels. Send it over there, and we do star campers. We do reviews pretty much every Friday. So go drop it over there and we'll take a look. Maybe even this Friday.
All right. Trying to think things through in my head, specifically navigation wise. You know, what happens when someone hits the right arrow? What happens when they hit the left arrow? Is one of them grayed out or inactive to start? We'll figure that out later. But I've got all my text layers kind of laid out down this artboard. And what I want to do now is mask them. So I'm going to grab a rectangle and I'm going to drag one out across this area here.
Okay.
Making sure that only the first text layer is, it's over top of the first text layer only. So I'm not concerned about the other ones. And then with this mask selected, I'm also going to select all the other text layers below it. And then object mask with shape. So it's going to take everything and put it inside of that object mask.
Oh, wow.
But
We're
it's
about to do
only
some like After Effects stuff right now.
maybe not that far, but it'll be
but
fun.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's only displaying was inside of that mask. Everything else it's still there, but it's all hidden.
Interesting.
Okay. And for now, as a matter of time, we're just going to keep this the same. Okay. So we have all the pieces in place. And what we want to do now is make this interactive. So what I'm going to do, and just want to make sure, I want to see what is going on down there. Oh, is that the illustration, I think? No, maybe. There's some layer that's kind of just like...
it might be the circle blobs.
Yeah.
Oh, there are some circle blobs that are just existing there.
There are circle blobs. Now
I think those are my circle blobs. Those are mine.
I'm going to delete your circle blob.
Yes, get rid of them. No place here.
All right. Also, I kind of like that shadow that you created, actually.
Oh, thanks. I'm pretty fond of it myself.
It's simple. It'll work. But I'm going to create my own. Just so it's vector.
That's fine.
Whoop.
And again, instead of brushing in shadows, we're doing, I think, the same thing here. Is if you want to make something float, just an oval with a good blur on it, that's all you need. It's perfect. And it just makes it look like the light is coming from the top, and it's created this nice little floaty kind of piece. Yeah,
if you want to get really fun with it, we can add like a linear gradient or something.
Oh.
We can go left to right. And then maybe the left side, there is that little fire pit over there.
That's
so
true.
Maybe we want to bring in a little bit of orange. Maybe we'll see. And then on this side, there's more purple going on. So maybe we'll bring in some purple and pinks. And the middle, we do have this yellow, but the images will change. So we want to make sure we don't have to change the shadow every time. So maybe we'll keep it fairly neutral, keep it fairly dark. And this will also allow us to kind of work with our blend modes a little bit too. I don't know if any of them is going to, it's a bit too light. It's interesting. I don't know. This is what we do, Andrew. We just experiment with things.
It's true.
Sometimes it'll work.
Yep. And I love that we've said it a couple times of like, oh, this might be crazy, but like, let's try it. And that's what the whole stream is, especially here with this cross collaboration is what can we do and what happens? Because it's like, man, we kind of need to land on something eventually. It's just fun at this point. We're just having a good time. And I think we forget about that in design a lot, is that we like, let's get to the final product and get it done. It's like, let's have fun with it. Like we have time. If it allows you, if you're not up on a deadline, why not? See what can happen.
Why not indeed? Okay, so I think we're at the point where we can start having some fun.
Ooh, I'm ready.
So I am going to select the entire hero image at the top.
Okay.
And we're going to create a component out of this entire thing. So I'm going to press that plus button over here to the right. Boop. And we have our default state. But of course, we want to create additional states with these other what are they called? Images and header images and all that fun stuff, whatever they're called.
Yep. And a component is basically just making it into almost like an interactive group idea. Like how would you describe a component?
It's almost like a smart object in Photoshop.
Cool.
So you can edit one of the components, so the main component in this case, and it'll update all the other instances.
Great.
You can also create additional states that you can transition between, so you don't have multiple artboards for one single interaction.
Perfect. Cool.
So in that case, we're going to press the plus button again, and we're going to create a new state. And this will be called, what was the second one? I think it was blue. Was it blue? Possibly. All right. And also on this state here, it's green. So we want to make sure that the overlay is green. Perfect. Okay. And then on the second state, we're going to drop the opacity. We're going to just leave it as this blue one. And then the text will change a little bit. So we're going to dive into the mask. We're going to select, actually, we'll select all of them and we'll drag up until we can see the second one.
Interesting. So this is almost, from being in a Photoshop background, this is almost like animating in Photoshop, similar if we were making like a frame by frame GIF. Same idea that it's this element is here, and then in the next state or the next move, the elements are still there, but they're just in different places. They're in different opacities. So it's just a lot of shifting, not necessarily a lot of reworking on each one.
Right. So, definitely don't think of it like After Effects, even though
Yep.
you can do a lot of that stuff. But, there's no keyframing. I know some designers want keyframing and more advanced controls, and these are things we're looking at. But, we want to take out all the guesswork.
Yep.
So, if you want to move something from A to B, just move it and then tell XD to animate it. And I'll show you that in a second.
Yes.
So then we have to figure out what we're going to do with this image. So obviously we want to bring this one forward. So do we want to maybe move it to the side, maybe rotate it and then drop the opacity, right? So it's like kind of off the artboard and
yep, kind of like swipe right on it.
Whoop, I muted you. What was that?
Oh, kind of swipe right on it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Then of course that would be triggered by the arrow, which let's go ahead and actually see that in action. So we have our first state and we have our second state, which is blue.
Okay.
And then in prototype mode, what we're going to do, we're going to select the object that's going to trigger this interaction. So in this case, it'll be the right arrow, and I'm going to click on that. And then from the properties inspector, we're going to use tap for now, and I can choose that blue state. So I'm going to choose that. And then we want to make sure that we're telling XD that we want animation. Otherwise, it's going to either dissolve or it's going to cut. We don't want that. So we're going to choose auto-animate. And I think ease. We don't need to go crazy.
Yeah.
Ease in and out, 0.4 seconds.
And ease in and out is just going to allow it so that it's not a hard start and stop. It gives it a little bit of ramp to it. So it feels a little more organic, a little more momentum-y. Yeah.
And what I did is I went to the next state, the blue state, and I linked the left arrow back to the default state. So we can kind of have this cycle going on. And now if I press play, actually, I'm going to press play, but you're going to notice something. We have this massive, long artboard thing going on. We don't want that. We actually want to see just what's above the fold and then allow the user to scroll. So in this case, what we're going to do first is we're going to select the entire artboard. And then over to the right, we're going to enable scrolling. So we're going to switch that to vertical. And then we're going to set this to, I think you had 1920. Yep, you had 1920. So we're going to set this 1080. And it's going to add this little guy over here to the left. That's your viewport height. So now if I press play, we see only what's at the top. And then we can scroll to see the rest.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Someone's asking, does the rectangle where you want part of the text to be visible have to be named masked? No, it doesn't. So you can name it banana cakes if you want. Just has to be used. You have to have it selected and then select the other objects underneath it and then object mask with shape. I just name it masks just so it's easier for me to find later if I need to.
Yep.
All right, so we have that, and there's still some readability issue. I might want to fix that later, but here we go. Woo. Woo.
How fun.
Yeah, I think there's some issues here, and but we can fix that. Woo. Woo. It'd be interesting. This is
to attach that sound effect to the animation. Yes, I agree.
I mean, you could do that, but what you could do, and this is probably not, I don't know why I'm doing these things.
Are we going to make the marshmallow swipe?
I'm just going to move it down a little bit, maybe. Why? I don't know. Because I can, I suppose.
It's interesting, the little things that we find that's like, you know what? I need to make this tiny little adjustment right now.
Yeah. Why not, right? Just messing with these points a little. There we go. Okay. And then the marshmallow, move this down. Maybe I'll rotate it a bit too. Because why not?
A little schmallow.
I'm just wasting time at this point. Okay, let's try this again. Whoops.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh, it didn't. Oh, you know what? I edited the main. What did I do?
You edited the default state.
Default state. I'm not very smart.
To hand this off to the dev, would they just need this prototype to figure out how to make it the real website for a client, for example? So what would the handoff look like for you?
Oh, so I figured this illustration was not included in the component, which is why it naturally did not animate.
Oh,
Okay, so let's see. So hand off to a dev, would they need the prototype to figure out how to make it for the real website of a client, for example? Ideally, of course, if you have these conversations beforehand and they know what you're going to be doing and how, then they may not. But ideally, it'd be nice to give them the prototype. And it's so easy. You just go into share mode and you can share it for design review so they can really interact with it and give feedback. You can also share it for development so that any of your marked assets, your colors, your character styles, all that's provided to them. And they can just go for there. They can also see the easing options. They can see the transition lengths and that sort of thing.
oh, that's
so
awesome.
all of
I've
it's
never seen
provided
that.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that you could share specifically for developers out of here. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I think there's some CSS that's provided. Obviously, it's not full HTML. There are plugins that do it, but converting design to code is never easy.
Yes.
Now, one more thing we might want to experiment with. We have these images here. We have this green, but maybe the ones behind it, maybe they'll, oops, what did I do? Oh, there we go.
Oh, are we going to do like a little swivel stack?
Maybe they'll just start a little bit smaller. What is it? What is that? Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well,
hello there. Little
Which
cameo by Office Hours to the rescue.
Yeah.
Don't know what's going on there.
So responsive resize is doing its thing. Logo. So fixed height is turned on. Okay. There we go. Much better.
Yes, the magic of something going wrong. And that's why I think it's important to have a knowledge of like the settings and all the tools and little bits here and there. And if you're learning, like literally just take time to go through and click on everything and see what it is. Because when you run into something like that, okay, cool, responsive resize will do this. So the problem probably is responsive resize. So you can go in and find that easily. But tutorials and stuff are great, but I love just jumping in and clicking on everything just to see what it does, to have a little bit of knowledge of kind of the language we'll be working in.
Yeah, of course. So I lost the blue one somewhere. I'm going to just undo this and we'll move on for now.
And Allison, what do you do if you also develop? Do you share it and then do it yourself? Why not?
Sure. I mean, you can export your assets locally, and you can also, for some things like this, this button here, you can copy the SVG code. So you can just grab the vector code and just pop it in your website. And sometimes it's easier if you do it yourself because you know exactly how things should transition and that sort of thing. But you can either, you can create a design spec sheet for yourself if you want to, if that's how you work, or you can just file export, and then you can export selected stuff and assets and all that goodness. Okay, we're going to get back up to the header at the top in a little bit, but I do want to get to this stuff here.
Yes.
So we are going to start, and I might want to, looking at this here, we have this kind of darker area, and then it's kind of bright in your face, right?
Yes.
I might want to darken this down a little bit. And I know you talked about yesterday having maybe like a parallax style effect. So there's something we can do, and we can definitely experiment with this. I'm going to start by grabbing the artboard and just darkening the color a little bit. And I'm assuming that's you I'm hearing sending.
It is. I sent over the Google Doc.
Sweet. Okay. I heard like clicking in my ears.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to darken the artboard.
And Chad has been talking pretty much the whole time about dark mode on different things, so I think that it fits right. Chad was talking a lot about a request to have Behance in dark mode, and I could not echo that request more. That would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, dark mode, yeah. One day, XD will have dark mode, and it'll be the greatest thing in the world. We just have bigger things to worry about.
Yep.
We've got bigger fish to fry. Yeah. All right. So we have a darker background, and what we want to do is add an image back there, but like a very subtle image. So I'm going to just drag out a rectangle, And going back to Finder, I do have some campy style images. This one's interesting. It's a nice bright image, but we don't want it that bright. So what we're going to do, we're going to experiment with some blend modes, possibly something like soft light again. Overlay. Okay, it's not too bad. And then you can experiment with the opacity, bring it down a little bit, or just make the artboard a bit darker too.
Yep.
Just so it's kind of there, but it's not there. You don't want it too bright, because if you have it set to something like normal, then you're dealing with all sorts of issues with text and readability.
That text is going to get chaotic.
Like yeah, very similar to what we have up here. And we're going to revisit this, especially some like these highlights here. It just something's going on there. Maybe we'll darken this area so the text. You know what we can do? I'm just all over the place, but I do want to make sure that we have everything's looking kind of decent.
Yep. And we talked about this kind of working top to bottom. I think that there are times that it like starts top to bottom, and then you have to kind of work chaotically because your brain will only think about that other part.
I agree. And sometimes you have to go back and forth to make sure that that story is told correctly.
Yes. And yes, Elizabeth Mock says the next season should be Office Hours dark mode. Yes, we will give you definitely a dark mode version of Office Hours. I'll do that. I'll change the production setup to be dark mode one week just for you, Elizabeth.
There you go. So now if I press play and I scroll down, we've got that image there. It looks pretty good. We're obviously going to fill this area, but we want that image to remain static as we're scrolling. So it's sort of like a parallax thing going on. It won't be exactly with things moving in different directions, but what we can do for that is we have this option of fixed position when scrolling. Now, if I were to turn this on right now and leave the image where it is, you're going to notice if I press play and I scroll down, no image. Where's the image? Well, it's doing exactly what it should be doing, right? It's fixed and it's staying right there, which happens to be below the fold. So it's always going to remain below the fold, right? So what we'll actually want to do is grab this image and just move it above the fold. So it's behind all this stuff in the background. So that way, when we scroll now, it's going to reveal itself.
Interesting. So it's just hiding behind.
It's just there doing its thing. And then as we get to that point, there it is. And then there it goes, right?
Interesting, like a little peekaboo. It almost gives dimension to the site, so it looks like we're looking through a window once we get to that part.
Yeah, exactly. So now onto the fun stuff. More fun stuff. We have this image here, and we want essentially a gallery of these videos and thumbnails going across, including some of the text. So what we're going to do, we're going to be using repeat grids. And I want to make sure to select all this information. So I have all of these selected here. I'm going to hit the repeat grid button at the top. Boop. There we go. And now we can very quickly drag out additional ones.
Whoa.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's space them out a little bit. I do want this one hanging off the edge, just so that we tell people that, when they get down there, there's something else to experience over there. And then in terms of the images themselves, you can drag one at a time to pop them in if you're very particular about where they're going to go. But back in our, press the wrong button. Back in our Office Hours shared library, I do have some season cards.
Yes, I'm going to drop in a couple more for you as well right now.
Okay, we can start with this. This is good. And I can just, boop, and it's going to fill all of them. There you go. Fancy. Now the text.
Oh, whoa! I didn't even realize what it just did. So it basically you dragged one of those, and then it pulled all of them into that repeat grid.
So I selected all of them.
Yep.
And I just boop.
That's incredible.
And you have to boop, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
every time.
It's built into XD. It just doesn't work. Kidding, by the way. Just in case someone out there is like, what, I have to boop? No, I don't like this. Now the text, of course, you can dive in and make some changes. But Andrew did send me somewhere. Let me find it. I'm going to copy this link, go over to Safari and paste the link. All right. So I have a Google document, and it's a spreadsheet, has titles, has descriptions. And what I want to do is just copy this to my clipboard, which I already had copied anyway. But, oh, look, you added more.
I did.
Boop.
Oh, that is so good that you can literally just grab those and it will populate them just straight through.
Yeah. And what's really cool is, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 repeat grid cells, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have quite a few more than 6. So if I decided to go and add more, it's going to bring in those additional ones.
That's magical. That they exist regardless of how many you put in. Oh, I can't handle that many episodes. We've actually probably done that many episodes.
Probably. So for the text layers, I'm going to just make sure, just to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to name these layers. So this one is going to be title, and this one is going to be description. Oops. You don't have to name them what the column names are named in the Google Sheet document. It just makes it a little bit easier for the plugin to figure it out. So now if I select that repeat grid, I'm going to go to my plugins at the bottom. And I do have the Google Sheets plugin right there. And I'm going to paste a public URL.
All right.
Just like that. Import. It's going to grab all that information from that Google Sheet, and I can now map it. So again, if you did not name your layers properly, you can definitely manually map them. But description will be matched to description, title will be matched to title. And then if Andrew went through and added links to the images on this sheet as well, I can map that in addition.
Oh,
and
wow.
then I can just apply.
Whoa.
There we go. Now, obviously, we have some problems, right?
Yes.
Some of the text a little bit longer. So we have some overlapping. Now, the nice thing about repeat grids is that it all stays in sync. So any stylistic changes you make will push to all the other ones. Very similar to components, right? So I can just go through and maybe make this smaller, and it's going to make it smaller everywhere.
That's amazing.
That looks a bit better. I can move it up a little bit. Now, it looks like some of the descriptions are definitely going more than 2 lines. So we have some cutoff, but I can extend the repeat grid a little bit, adjust the spacing, and then bring it back. And now we have a little bit more room. All right. That looks pretty good.
Wow, that looks really good for the amount of time and work we had to put into it. Like in Photoshop, again, this would have taken 10 times the amount of time in Photoshop. And that's why I love when we talked yesterday that you're kind of just like, I just need one and then we can figure it out from there. Because each one of these would have been place the image, title, description, place the image. And here we're just like, boom, done.
Yeah, it's amazing. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So one more thing we wanted to do is we want to enable scrolling. So we have some of these episodes going off the artboard, and I could just add a few more if I want to. Let's end with our stream, because why not, right?
It feels right.
Yeah. So I have the repeat grid selected, and over to the right in the properties inspector, we have different scroll group options. So we can do a horizontal scroll group left to right. We can do a vertical scroll group up and down. We can also do a scroll group in all directions. So if you're prototyping a map experience, for example, it's a good one. So I'm going to turn that on, and we have these blue handles now. And this defines essentially the viewport. Everything inside of this is going to be seen at all times. Everything outside of it will be accessible upon scroll. So I'm going to make sure this one is snapped over to the left-hand side. This one is on the right, which looks great. And one more time, I'm going to press play. And now I can just use my mouse or trackpad and scroll on over.
Yeah.
And it just feels more real.
Yep. Does it rubber band at the end?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Just the little touches.
I think that's an operating system thing.
Okay.
Possibly. I don't know. I haven't tried this on Windows. But yeah, I think that's an operating system thing. Maybe not, though. If anyone used scroll groups on Windows, does it do the little rubber bandy thing? Maybe Windows has scroll rubber banding. I don't know.
Yes, let us know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're getting there.
Making our way.
Making our way downtown.
That's it.
All right. So this section here, the getting started section, first thing I want to do is just let it breathe a little bit. I know we have some
And
some
how did you
breathing
just pull that
things.
whole thing down? Is it just you're grabbing the whole group and kind of
I
pulling it
just
down?
grabbed the whole group. Yeah.
Nice.
Now, however, what we can do, knowing that these two sections are kind of linked together, what we can do is we can select these two. I'm going to group them both together. And what would this be called? Middle? I don't know.
Yeah,
Sure.
let's say
It's
middle.
called middle now. And I can turn a stack on in the properties inspector. Now, when I turn a stack on, it automatically noticed that there are multiple objects, in this case, multiple groups inside of this larger group that I turn the stack on, and they're laid out top to bottom. So it defined it as a vertical stack. And now I can dive in and just adjust it.
Oh, interesting.
Just by pulling that. Now, of course, I can also include additional groups as well. So now this one down here is going to be a little bit more difficult because there's that overlap. So let's, for now, till we figure that out, let's just move this here. You know what? I'm going to delete this for now. We're gonna work on that. So we have that and we have this. You know what we can do? We can just add all of this. I want to make sure that this one is, I'm going to move this up a little bit so it's not overlapping, because that could cause some problems. Okay, so we've got our header at the top. I'm going to select this section here, this section, and then our bottom section, which is not grouped. So let's go ahead and group this. Group. And I'll select this, 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 and this. So I have basically all of our content selected. And I am going to pop this all into a group. I'll call this content. And just like I did before, I'm going to turn a stack on in the properties inspector. Again, it defined as vertical because it's going top to bottom. And what's cool now is of the same example, if I dive in here and adjust the spacing, you're going to notice the section at the bottom is also moving.
Interesting. So it's basically saying, hey, these are pieces and they stay together.
Right. And you can also swap. So if I wanted this section above, whoop, I just do that. Or I just swap
that's
this.
awesome.
Yeah. So it makes it super simple. Or if you want to add a completely new section, you just do that.
That's awesome.
All right. So what was I doing? I was adding spacing, making things breathe a little bit. And this section over here, we wanted to display the various badges, right?
Oh, yes.
So I believe in your folder or your library, we do have some badges there. So we have one badge already, and then grab in another badge. Ooh, that's a large badge.
It is.
And I'll let that sync on over. Must be a pretty big file. There we go. Delete that one. Delete that one. And we have badges.
And it looks like we've lost the link for the Discord and the phone that I had there.
Yeah, I did delete that phone just so we can.
I love it. I love it.
I deleted it for
I knew
now.
you would. I put it in and I was like, I feel like this is going to go pretty quick.
Let's see. So I'm just trying to think. How are we going to arrange these? So I'm going to also group these. And I can turn the stack on again. So if I did need to rearrange these and swap the positions, I can easily do that.
Oh, interesting. So stacks work within groups of objects as well, not necessarily just pieces of the page.
Yeah, so you can have a stack in a stack with, individual elements, a lot of different things. Let's move it down a little bit just so we don't have that overlapping going on. Okay.
Yep.
So I think here's another opportunity to bring in that fun wood board that we were working with earlier, right?
Yeah.
Now, the big question, of course, is do we want to use the same sign or do we want to mix it up a little bit and use something different?
Ooh, let's use something different. Why not?
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Why not? So I'll bring this one in. Now, I'm going to also add this character style.
I was going to say, we can use the same treatment that we have there, on the new sign without having to recreate it from scratch.
Right. All right, make that a bit bigger. And then it said join now, I think.
Yes.
There we go. I can apply the style. I can also grab the, oops, where did it go? There it is. I can copy this and I can also paste the appearance. So it's taking the inner shadow, the drop shadow, all that stuff and popping it on there. Perfect.
Work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm. Now we could also combine this. Maybe we can just put this little guy.
I was gonna say that guy would look really good with the shadow effect on it.
Now we could, that might be a bit too much. Yeah, okay. Let's put this maybe beside it. Maybe. I don't know if this is too small.
I think it works. It's pretty cute carved out.
Little purple in there, maybe, because Discord's purple. I
Yep.
don't know. I don't know.
I'll take it.
I don't know how I feel. You like it?
I don't hate it.
That'll work for me.
Yeah. And chat, I'm curious, what are you working on? Are you working on anything in XD, any sites, any of that stuff? Or are you working on your portfolios? What are you currently in the process of working on? I know that we're kind of midsummer now, so I'm sure if you're a student, maybe you're thinking about going back to school, or if you're a creative professional, what's going on in your creative world? Let us know.
I'm curious. So the phone that I deleted earlier, I think we should bring that back. And I think I have some assets we can possibly use. I think I have a device frame, a nice, simple, dark device frame.
Nice.
And then you did provide let's see if I can find it.
There is, yes, a Discord in there. It is the desktop screenshot of Discord, but we could probably fake it. I don't know if I've ever used, actually, hold on. Let me see if I have Discord on my phone. I can send you a screenshot. Yep.
Okay. I'll just leave this here for now.
Cool. And I'm going to change to dark mode for all of you that are about to complain about my Discord being in light mode. All right.
Okay. So I want to get to this section down. Whoops. This section down here, because it's a bit of a mess right now. And I think we can do some really interesting things in this section here. The most basic thing we can do is possibly add like a corkboard texture down to the bottom.
And there is one in the assets.
There was, yeah. I also grabbed one from Adobe stock I can bring in.
Cool.
At least I thought I did. Where did it go? Oh, no. Oh, it's here. Boop. Fancy.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to move Glennis down here for a second, just so we have some room. And let's start working on this section here. We're going to have some overlap because if you're familiar with corkboards, things are all over the place. Things are overlapping. It's just a hot mess. And I also have this paper texture I can just drag in here. Whoops, I missed it. Boop.
Oh, cool. And a question for you. If we wanted to, let's say, make that paper blue, would the easiest way to do that would be to put a blue shape above it and then multiply down?
You can do that. You can also right click and then edit in Photoshop if you want.
Oh, interesting. And it would update right there.
Go for some sort of brownish yellow text, possibly. Now, ideally, possibly, maybe like a handwritten, very scrappy scribble text would be interesting here, but it kind of breaks away from your design system. So I don't know if you want to go that direction.
We're all about having fun today, so why not?
I don't like that one. There is chalkboard, I think. Yeah, I don't like that one. Comic Sans.
Right.
No, let's not do that. And then at the bottom, we can probably bring in another sign.
Why not?
Now, you know what? For this one, because we do have the break, or we have a different one up here, we can probably just use our component and just drag that in.
Yep. A lot
And
of
this,
people posting what they're working on, some editorial illustrations. Elizabeth, Voodoo Val in the middle of doing graphic design package for a match of cards for pro wrestling. Heck
ooh,
yeah, that's super fun. Santi working on some podcast branding. Needs an animator for it. Chat. If anyone's an animator in chat, hit up Santi. Get a little collaboration happening.
I was about to quit the stream if you picked up Comic Sans.
Right.
I didn't end up doing it. I
We thought
saved
about it,
all
though.
of your eyes.
Yes. And Wade, of course, submitting enviro and character designs for a client pitch. If you guys haven't seen Wade's work, his name right there, just click on that little picture of Wade. His work's incredible. He's an amazing, amazing illustrator, and he streams a lot on Behance. So if you want to watch his process, it's just mesmerizing and fantastical. He likes to do a lot of fantasy stuff.
Fantastical. All right, so in this area here, I know we talked about a lot of different ideas. You know, the thing that pops up at some point, it went to tombstones.
Tombstones, that's right.
Polaroids were mentioned at some point. I want to start in that area, and then we'll see if we can add some animation.
Yep. And
but just to keep things simple,
something that could be interesting, sorry, that just popped in my head, is I wonder if we leave that illustration of the guy there and just put like a super rough kind of border around it, so it looks like it's kind of a cut picture tacked in there. And that way we tie in
like
the illustration from the top and bottom.
Yeah, possibly. Or like a sticker that's posted on this.
Oh, yes, exactly.
That could be interesting. I like that idea. All right, so for the Polaroid, I'm going to add a bit of a border. And just to bring it up from the background. Now, here's another situation where shadows come into play. Do we need a shadow in this case? Probably not. But if you ever looked at a cork board, there's usually a bit of shadowing going on. So,
but do we want a shadow?
Yeah, because we're trying to mimic real life, let's turn a shadow on. Now,
let's do it.
Let's talk about shadows. I know everyone loves when I talk about shadows. I see this a lot. I see this. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Don't do it.
I know as designers, what we want to do with our shadows is we want to use a shadow to separate the top image or the top layer from the bottom layer, which is great, right? But again, going back to what I was talking about, try to design so you don't need any shadows. And then when you're at that point, you can add very nice, subtle, soft shadows. So in this case, what we want to do, we can still keep, a little bit of a bump on the X and Y axis, just a little bit. We don't want to go too far because that would give the impression that this object is further away from the cork board, which wouldn't make much sense. It probably wouldn't be floating there. The blur, we probably want to blur it a little bit more than it is now, possibly just like 8 or something. But the color and opacity, that's where things get interesting. So in this case, because we're dealing with a background, this cork board, which has oranges and reds and browns, Bliss is saying the disgust in Howard's don't do this.
Don't do this.
I'm very passionate about my shadows.
Yes.
So I'm going to bring in some of that color, right? And if you look at the before, there's the before and the after. It's subtle,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
But you go further. You almost never want a shadow with 100% opacity. So you just bring it down a little bit so that it's there. It's got some color in it, but it's also not really there. It's just doing its thing.
Yep.
Hanging out, adding a little bit of depth.
And I love that, like, you kind of think in your brain that, like, it's just aesthetic, right? That you're like, oh, I need to put a shadow on this. But we talked about it yesterday and a little bit today, is that it's all about storytelling when you're working on a web experience. And here the story has become that, oh, we're not just on a web page anymore. We're on a cork board. And the story is that you're walking up to it and you're seeing work from some of our people. And so if the story is that it is an actual cork board, then we have to inform that by adding those shadows. And so that's why there are places we don't have shadows on images. But because the story needs that, we're adding the shadows here.
Right. Exactly. Now we can add the picture in the center. And then, of course, if we have something like this, I can just copy this and paste it inside. or if we had a image in our library. Let's see if I can find one. Do we have any other community member images?
I can grab some right now. And for the one that we have there, it is someone that, sure, we want a Discord. We're not doing an artist spotlight today, but guess what? We're doing an artist spotlight now, I guess. But it is a designer who is a member of our community, Glennis Eng. I just dropped the link to you, Val, if you want to drop it in chat. Y'all give a follow and go check it out. And I'm going to grab a couple more for you right now, Howard.
Sweet. And I'm going to go ahead and add Glennis. Whoop, that's Glenish. I apologize, Glennis. Did I spell that right? I did. Okay. Make that lower.
Swoop. And again, I love using Creative Cloud libraries because it just makes it so easy to share and collaborate on stuff. Like right now, I'm taking screenshots and Howard and I are getting seamless images across. And literally all I'm doing is screenshotting and then saving straight out of my screenshot program into the folder. And they'll pop up once I drop them in there. Howard doesn't even need to do anything. He can just keep working. And then I can do my side of the work as we need to.
Yeah. What's even cooler about this is when I brought in this image that Glennis created, you're going to notice that at the top left-hand corner, there's a link icon, this green little icon up there. That lets me know that it is pulling in from an original source that, in this case, Andrew controls because it's his library. So if Andrew decided to update this image, maybe there was something wrong with it, needs retouching or whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter. If he makes changes to this, it'll automatically just update it, which is wonderful. So, it just keeps that seamless process going.
That's awesome. And yes, we just added another one in there for you from our friend Brian Ragazza, which I will drop a link as well if you guys want to follow along. And I dropped it into our shared library.
Sweet. So I can duplicate this over. Well, actually, what I can also do is turn this into a component. Command or Control K. Oops.
I love the joy of you discovering a different way to do that. Like we could do this, or
I just remember this exists.
Yes.
I've only used it 7 million times. And the nice thing about this is, if I decided to change the overall style, just like the button earlier, if I wanted to round out the corners of the Polaroid, it pushes those changes everywhere. So you added, let's see, let me go back to our library. Let's see if I can find it.
It should be at the bottom in the extra assets, Brian Ragazza.
Boop. There we go. I don't know if I love this text, but that's okay. And the nice thing about character styles is that you can update them very easily. All right, one more thing I wanted to add down in this section is a way to pin this stuff to the wall or this corkboard. So, I could have grabbed a pin, a vector image from Adobe Stock, but let's have some fun. Let's create our own.
Yes, I love the fun that's happening today.
Why not, right? We'll make it a little bit larger, and we can always shrink it down. And this pin is going to be made up of probably 2 or 3 parts, maybe. So this first part's that top little section, the thing you actually push down on. And let's start off with a radial gradient. We'll do a little bit of a lighter color up here at the top. We'll do a bit of a darker color. Maybe we'll move this up a little bit. So there's a little bit of a highlight up there. And then, of course, we need an inner shadow. Now, this one we're going to put on the bottom. We don't want it blurred very much because we actually want this to act almost as a little bit of a lip down there. And I'm going to bump this up a touch. Still looks a little bit too soft. That's a bit better. I'm going to add a little bit of red just so it's, there and depthy.
Yep, that's definitely going to change my workflow because I very often will use just a dark gray or a black and then kind of, work that as my shadow. And I've never really considered that it is so important to have the color as a little part of it as well. And so I'm 100% going to incorporate that in to all of my shading now because it does give it a more rich, realistic tone.
It does. I love, let me see if I have some very subtle examples like this. The shadow is actually a little bit green so it doesn't look too harsh. This one here, the shadow is slightly blue. So it's just a very subtle, pleasing feeling.
Yes.
I've just been loving these very subtle, colorful shadows. You don't want to go too crazy because then it looks like a glow. But yeah, keep it subtle and everything will look great.
Yep. And Andreas is asking, where's the pink papyrus reminder from the Quark background? It is gone. After the stream yesterday, I went in and made my changes. And that was the first thing that I changed is went in and said, oh man, I need to rebuild this with the Quark. Deleted that pink comment sans. And if you missed that from the stream yesterday, inside tips near the end of the stream that you can watch. I believe the link is down below if you want to catch up on the Photoshop side of this build out.
Now for this one here, this is going to be that like circular area. So this is where radial gradients and gradients in general become really important because we want to simulate that it's kind of roundish. So what we're going to do is we're going to experiment a few things. So maybe on the left-hand side, we have to also decide where the light's coming from. So maybe on the left-hand side, we might have some light and then it might transition to a bit of a darker color. Maybe there's some more light sort of in the center, and then it gets a bit darker as well. Something like that.
Nice little glow.
Little glow. All right, and we're going to add a few additional styles in a second once we get another shape in there. But you know, if I move this behind, it doesn't look like a push pin. So in this case, I'm going to actually grab these points, bring them in a little bit so it kind of tapers at the top and then gets a little bit wider at the bottom. Almost looks like a spaceship trying to abduct you.
It does, and I love with the anchor points up there. It looks like a little like alien person.
It does, look at the little eyes. I'm amused. Although the proportions are not right. Let's fix this. I think once we get the other bit at the bottom, it might make a bit more sense.
Yep.
And then for that little bit, we're going to grab, let's try an ellipse. Now this one should be a little bit larger than the one at the top. I think the proportions are completely off right now, but that's okay. We can always fix that.
It has to be bad before it's good.
Exactly. And this section here, we might actually want to round out in a second. So for this one, because it's more of a bulbous, sort of like a spheric, whatever you call it, I'm going to go for, let's say, a radial gradient. And maybe at the top, there might be that highlight hitting it. So we're going to go for a lighter red, and the bottom, more of a darker red. But we want to create like a real, like, almost like a ridge. So if I add another point here, make it a bit lighter, and just experiment with this, we can start to see that there's a little bit going on there. And if I pull this outwards, there we go.
Yep. And it's interesting that you have the shape, but the actual ellipse that we're seeing right now is the gradient. It's not necessarily the right shape that we're moving. It's the gradient that's inside that shape. So the shape's almost acting as a mask.
A little bit, yeah. And I can also grab the points and experiment with those a little bit. So if you want the bottom a little bit, more squarish.
Yes.
Yeah. Something
we're like starting to get into Squircle territory just a little bit.
Almost. There is a Squircle plugin, and I'm very excited that it exists.
Yes.
It's the greatest thing in the world.
It is. I finished a branding project that the whole system was built on Squircles, and it made me so happy.
That makes me happy to hear. There we go. And then on this little guy here, we might want to add maybe a bit of a shadow, possibly an inner shadow, maybe on the bottom a touch, and we'll blur it just a little bit. Now, we have to start thinking about lighting again, right? If we were to add a dark inner shadow, it almost looks like this piece goes into this shape at the bottom.
Yep.
But in reality,
yeah,
in reality, it's all kind of one connected piece. So we might want to just use this as a bit of a highlight. And that almost simulates a bit of a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the light is hitting this piece here. It's a little bit reflective, and it's bouncing that light onto this middle section. I don't know what you call these things, but we're going to run with that. And then to add a bit of a lip, we're going to add another drop shadow. I'm going to bump it down to about 1 and 1, keeping it very simple.
Just a little bit of ridge. Yeah.
There we go. Now this top thing is looking weird, so I'm going to shrink it down a touch. Maybe. Really got to finesse these things into place.
Yep. It reminds me of almost one of the little play things from Sorry. Is it Sorry?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. It does. The colors aren't great, but you know what? We're going to move on for now. I'm going to grab the good old rectangle. We're going to create the little, what is it called? The metal pin. I don't know. The pin, I guess.
Yeah, the
right?
pin part. Yeah. That's interesting. The whole thing is the pin, but then also the pin is the pin.
The pin is the pin.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's the takeaway for today, everyone. Put it on a sunset and print it on a poster.
The pin is the pin. I'm going to add a bit of an inner shadow on the left-hand side. And this is going to be another highlight, just so we have this metallic sort of look going on. And then, of course, because the pin kind of goes into a point, we're once again going to edit these and just bring them in a little bit. Move it behind.
Just a little pointy point.
Little pointy point. Almost there. I think it needs to be a little bit darker here. Ooh.
Oh, wow. It really gave it that shimmer. It's incredible what you're doing with gradients, that it's just stacks of different colors on gradients and not necessarily any kind of like image or texture. It's just pure gradients.
Yeah, I can certainly add some textures if we really want to, but it's such a small element that,
yep,
you know, it's probably not worth it. We could add something like a drop shadow up here, possibly. Definitely don't want it blurred as much. Now, what you're going to notice is, you know, it adds a little bit of a thing, but it kind of, right?
Yep.
So in that case, what I would probably do is this guy here. And you know what? I'm actually going to add one more thing to this guy as I'm just kind of like brainstorming out loud, is I might want possibly more of a ridge at the bottom and maybe another highlight. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop these to 0. Bring this up a touch. Maybe I'll switch this over to soft light so it blends in a little bit.
Ooh. And yes, Kara is saying Howard is the gradient master. I agree. I am witnessing the glory. I'm just basking in the light.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Maybe soft light. Ooh, almost. And then at the bottom, I can add a bit of an actual shadow this time. Something like that, just to give a little, because you know it's probably it's curving underneath, so it's probably a little bit darker down there, and it just helps add a little bit more something, right? Still not loving it, but I think it'll do.
That'll do.
I spent like what 20 minutes on creating a pin that probably no one's gonna see.
This is probably the smallest thing on the page, and I love that, like the little details. And I do this too, that you get so obsessed with some little thing, and then you end up posting the case study, and you're like, I just want to show the pin. Who cares about the rest of this? I just want to show you how good this pin is.
Right. And I still don't love the shape. Maybe it needs to be up a little bit, and then. Hope I'm not boring
pinny.
people. Does it look pinny? Maybe the gradient is wrong. Maybe there's like.
I think it looks like a pin. It's working for me.
Yeah.
And yes, this is peak designer mode. I agree, Val.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Look at that. Now we're getting some like additional something going on.
Yep, there's that little
Okay.
reflection around the edge. Yep.
All right. I think we're almost there. We're getting there. Again, I shouldn't spend this much time on a pin, but
We've got like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Ration some time. Yes, and Voodoo Val is saying it's immersive. Okay, yes, that's true. We need to sell the story.
There you go. Thank you, Val.
Oh, that did a lot.
Whoa.
That did a lot
Whoa.
for just whatever was happening. That little thing did a lot.
Yeah, it's not the right shape, but I mean, so there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can duplicate this layer and then maybe, do something like this. I'm going to move it behind just to make sure it's kind of inside that area. Of course, you can mask it and all that fun stuff. Let's give it a bit of a gradient. And no shadow and a blur.
That does a lot too.
There we go. Ooh, there we go. It just adds a bit more depth. We can stick with normal and just drop the opacity a bit. Okay. You know what? Let's move on. Let's not worry about this pin thing.
Yes, it works. We got it.
It works. Great. Andrew's like, you can create a pin. Congratulations.
It's a good pin. It's better than any pin I've ever made.
Actually, one more thing I want to do is add a shadow so that it just doesn't look like it's floating somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to actually grab all these elements. I'm going to combine it into a single Boolean object, very similar to Pathfinder in Illustrator.
Boolean.
Shadow. And
what is a Boolean object? I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, it's Pathfinder basically.
Cool.
It adds things together, subtracts, excludes. The other one that no one uses. What is
the other ones? Yes, the
Intersect.
bottom row, as we call them in Illustrator.
Yeah. That's the one. All right, so I'm gonna set both of these to the same color. Right, we can probably bring in a little bit of the orangish red again. And then at the top, I'm actually going to drag that down. Let's rotate it a bit. And then the magic sauce, the blur. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
And in theory, it should be going, I think, the same to the bottom right, to follow the drop shadow on the photos, maybe.
Oh, yeah. So it should be like, probably like this or something.
Yep.
And then this pin would probably, I'm just going to, just to give it a little bit of something.
Ooh,
rotate it a bit.
zazz.
There we go. I'm going to turn all this into a component because we might want to use it. And then stick it in there.
Yes. Boop.
That's,
and yes, Gal says boop. We got to have the boop.
That's a very large pin, but you know what? It'll do.
It works.
And maybe we can add a little hole, a little bit of a thing going on there. It's probably too large. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
It might. No one's going to see that.
It gives it a little something. I know it's like 2 pixels of like.
Literally no one's going to see it. I'm spending all this time.
time.
That's the problem when you really start zooming in on your designs. You're like, oh man, this is like the biggest thing in the world. I'm working on this shadow where this thing goes in the thing and I'm going to add a gradient to it. And then you zoom out and you're like, it's 2 pixels, dude.
Yes, it's all gone.
Yeah.
Especially working in vector. Because if you're working in raster and Photoshop, you can kind of see like, oh, it's just like a couple pixels, doesn't really matter. But when you zoom in working vector, you're like, okay, everything has to be perfect because it's so crisp. And then you zoom out and you're like, oh, it's all just gone.
Yeah. It's good times.
The best of times.
Okay, let's take one more look before we move on. The hole looks stupid. That's another thing we deal with as designers. We work all this time and it's like, no, that's just
kill it. Yep.
Yeah, get rid of it.
Yep.
Come back to it later.
Do we want to? I did send over a screenshot for phone Discord as well.
Oh yes, I saw that. It's just in Slack, right?
Yes.
Okay. rotate some of these just to give a little bit of a fun feel. Why not?
Man, this is so fun. I'm excited to see, and I'll make sure that we have a time at the end to see from the Photoshop file where we started to where we ended, and just show the magic of, one, the interactions that we did, but two, the collaboration that happened between where we started in Photoshop and where we ended in XD, because we leveraged so many of the tools like the repeat grids to take like the idea that was happening in Photoshop and then execute fully into XD.
Indeed. And we haven't even done like any prototyping yet. We haven't done hover states. We haven't done a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah, we're running out of time. But here's the phone. Of course, we can throw it on top here. We have to really think about where things go and that sort of thing. It probably doesn't fit here. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Let's see. So hover states. I guess one thing we can do for a hover state, just as a simple example, is maybe this video player, we can have a hover state so that if you hover over top of it, we can imagine that it's playing, and then you hover over top of it, like a pause button shows up, it gets a bit darker. You know how you're on YouTube and you hover?
Yep.
Why not, right? Got the video there, we've got a play button of some sort, and then we'll want, in this case, it'll be pause maybe. What does a play button look like on YouTube? It's like a
triangle. Oh yes, it's white with like a darkened out background. Darked. Let's pretend like darked is a word.
Darked is a word. It is now.
Yes. And I wonder too if this is a thing. This is more of a question for you. Even those badges on the side, if we did some kind of hover state to where they would just kind of move up a little bit on hover so it feels like it has that interaction.
Ooh,
right?
We can do that. Yeah.
Cool. That's one of my favorite things on sites is when you hover over stuff and it just like bounces a little bit. I don't know why, but it brings me so much joy when it feels like, I don't know, it makes it feel more real and like I'm doing something.
Mm-hmm. I love bouncy things.
Yes.
It's just fun.
Yep. And so we're doing the same thing, similar kind of workflow as when we had the component state at the top, right?
Right.
Cool.
I don't love this button. I think it looks, actually I can go on Behance right here, right?
Oh yes, I can literally just hover over the live stream that we're currently watching.
Oh, it doesn't even have a thing at the top. It's just at the bottom, the little video player.
When you click, it does come up with a pause that looks similar to yours on click.
Okay. Maybe we can do like a blue. Or maybe not. I don't know.
Ooh.
And then white.
That makes it feel like it's a Behance custom branded stream pause.
It does. Or if we want to be really obnoxious.
Yes, absolutely yes. This is the best and worst idea ever. Yep, that's it. We just turned into a video game holding screen.
This is the dumbest thing I've ever designed.
But it's so right. It's so right.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to go for it.
Yep. It's fun. And I think that fits the story and the vibe of this page is it's fun.
Yeah. It's not the best user experience. You should probably have an actual pause icon.
Yep. But it's not the worst.
You can probably create something similar. See, ideas just continuously pop into my head.
It's true.
It's not healthy.
I know. We do have about 10, 12 minutes left just for time checks.
That's not enough time to create a fancy pause button.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Okay.
Good enough.
We're going to stick with this. It'll work. It'll work. Oops. Let's see. So we have, this is, okay. Oop.
And so now we're going to do basically the component state, right?
Right. So what we'll want to do is, because you know, ideally this would be playing, and then you would hover over top of it, and you would have the option to pause. So if I go ahead and I can create our component with all these elements here. Where did this thing go? Whoops, I missed something. Oh gosh, what is happening? So what happens when you don't organize your layers? So the default state, this overlay will not appear. So I'm going to just drop the opacity. This will not appear. And this will not appear. And I'm going to create a new state. This will actually be a hover state. And if you're new to XD, that little guy over to the right lets you know that it's going to automatically be wired up. So you don't have to go into prototype mode. You don't have to do anything else. It just does its thing. So I'm going to choose that. And now I can unhide these, bump this back up to 100%. And then if we scroll down, oops, too far. There we go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Fun.
Now you also mentioned that maybe these could have some hover states too. I think that could be fun.
Just pop them up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? So
and looking underneath that, maybe we don't have the phone and we just put that screenshot of Discord to fill that space a little bit so there isn't the big chunk.
Oh, maybe. That could work.
And this is interesting because the hover state is not any actual change. It's just moving basically location. It's not doing any kind of extra things. It's just moving. Oh, it's so fun. I love it so much.
That's it. Little tiny hover state.
Just a little boop.
Little boop. 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 There was two things. Boop. And then one more, this guy here. Same thing, component, hover state, and boop. And there we go. Now we should have all three of our hover states. Ooh, I'm lagging. There we go. Look at that.
Yes, that auto sync on the huge file that we're probably working on.
Yeah, this is not a small file. So
yes.
There's, and I'm streaming, and there's a lot going on here.
Yes.
And I have this stupid high quality pin down here, which is probably breaking everything.
Yes.
All the pin's fault.
Yes. All right. So we've got about 10 minutes. Let's do two things that I had ideas is let's do the, let's make that guy a sticker. Cause I think that would be pretty easy, right? Just a matter of putting a stroke on him.
Possibly.
Or.
Cause if I add a border, see, it's going to add a border to all the different. That looks.
Oh, that's chaotic.
That looks insane. Ah. Actually, okay, let's try this. Let's try that. This might break everything, but we're going to try this. I'm going to duplicate this.
Those are the best ideas.
To select everything and pop it into a single
Boolean
object. Yeah. And then let's see if I add a border on this. On the outside, let's bump it up to 100%. Ha-ha.
That worked.
That does work. And then I can also add that shadow. Now this one, because the sticker is more like stuck, there's not going to be as much floating going on.
Yep.
So we'll still add a bit of a shadow, but it won't be as pushed away.
Yeah, more of an edge. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like 2 or 3 for the Y, very little blur because it's closer to its surface that it's on. Again, it's kind of there, but it's also not there. And then we can maybe position him. Where do you want to put him? Like right here?
Yeah, why not?
Then we can move some of this stuff around.
Little camping guy. Chat, can we name him? Can he please have a name?
Now we can't see Glennis's name down there. So, these are things you have to think about as you're going through this process. But yeah, a name would be great.
Yes. Let us know his name in chat. And Howard, in our last 5 minutes here, let's maybe drop the screenshot of Discord that's in the library just in that little blue space and just crop it so it looks like it kind of is a thing.
Okay. Another thing we can potentially do is maybe add like a bit of a mask.
Oh yeah, easy.
Yeah, why not, right? Object mask with shape. Oop, look at that.
There we go.
Bam.
It's not
So you gotta
cheating if
talk
you do
things
it
through
right.
and listen to people. There we go.
Love it.
All right, what was the other thing?
And yes, I love that. Elizabeth says Nick in honor of Nick. Yes, his name is Nick.
His name is Nick. There you go.
Yes. And so I think what I want to do in the last 5 minutes, let's go ahead and can you open the Photoshop file that we started with, or at least pull up the screenshot of where we started today? And
yes.
we can kind of show how we went from Photoshop into XD and kind of give the rundown of the entire workflow, because it was a crazy crossover. It was a little bit of a different workflow, but I think it worked really well.
Yeah, so here's that file that Andrew created yesterday. I feel like if I open Photoshop, everything's going to just like explode.
Yes.
But yeah, he started to kind of block things out and added some basic information, some buttons, and also the content that's going to ideally go at the top. And then this section here, he had the idea of having this gallery that scrolls, but knowing that repeat grids exist in Adobe XD, he just added one and allowed me to take over and continue from there. And then this section here, we didn't do much to this section here. We added a few things. We added that banner or wood thing, made some changes to the device. And then down here, we just went crazy with the pin and the cork board and a lot of different things. But you can really see that, taking a look at this, right? It's, I wouldn't say it's basic because it definitely does its job. But then as you start designing and really getting into the high fidelity stage, you start getting ideas on how you can really take it home. And this is by no means final. There's a lot wrong with this. Some of the text at the top, it's hard to read, so I would probably improve that. Maybe just like get rid of some of these trees, right? And it's all vector, so you can do that. Maybe darken this area even more. And then we added some component states. Whoops. Right? And you go back and forward. Again, my computer's lagging, but yeah. And then from here, like you can go in so many different directions. One thing I wanted to get to is a completely different page for maybe videos, right? Mm-hmm. So let's see what we can do. So I can grab some of this information here. This might be a bit small, but if you take a look at Behance, for example, you've got this big video that's kind of over on this side. Yep. There's a shadow there somewhere. Where's the shadow? Oh, that might be part of the image. Okay, that's okay. And then, one of the big questions, do we want to bring in the same style as the homepage? Possibly, right? Yeah. So you can grab some of the colors. You can grab this entire image in the background, possibly. Let's grab the illustration. This might be a bit too much, but you can do things like this. And then maybe set the background color to black. And then drop the opacity just so it's kind of there, but it's also not there. Almost like a little light box. Yeah, you can just start reusing stuff. So you can grab maybe your scroll group down here. So here's some recommended videos. And it's bringing in that live scroll group, so we don't have to necessarily reprogram and say, hey, this is a scroll group still. It's literally copy and pasting with all the settings, all the interaction, and all that as well, right? Right. I can move this down a little bit. Let me extend the artboard. And then, of course, you can put like a chat pod over there, and there's so many different things you can do. And what's really nice is we have this, tune in button. So we can go into prototype mode now. We can select this button, drag this handle over to this artboard, and then set up a very simple transition. We don't need any auto-animate because nothing's really going to be animating. That'd be probably too much. And then we'll just cut it because that's typically what websites do. So now we play. We can click. Oh, my computer is just not having it. There we go. Oh, we still have that hover effect going on. We'd probably have to deal with that. But, you can just create all these different pages and kind of preview what this is going to look like once it's actually developed, which is great. And you can do it so quickly.
Yeah, I was gonna say we started and you're like, oh, let's do a video page. I was like, oh no, we're not gonna have time. And being able to just grab the repeat that we have there, being able to grab the assets and kind of reuse them, it's so easy to build out a ton more assets and just make it so that it's super quick, super easy. And I mean, we could build 3 or 4 more pages pretty quickly based on the content that we have. We could have a Discord one. Oh, that's so fun.
It probably is not practical considering, it's over top of the video, but have fun with things.
I'm not mad about it. And that's the thing, like somebody has to put images over video before people get mad about it. Why not give it a try?
Sure, why not? But there we go.
That's magic. That is absolute magic. That was super fun. So yes, chat, if you ever want to work or you're working on a project and you're more comfortable in Photoshop, design it in Photoshop and then bring it over to XD. And it's great the way that we can iterate, that we can collaborate, that we really took this from one kind of, it was a stage past wireframing, and then end with this semi high fidelity. We've got illustrations, we've got the ideas that we had, but really fleshed them out in XD, and then use the power of XD to animate everything.
Indeed.
Howard, any sage wisdom for our friends that are getting started in XD, just kind of figuring out any advice for beginners that want to jump into this?
Yeah, I mean, aside from joining all of our streams, which are free, we have the daily challenges. Andrew does his office hours. We have streams like this all the time. They're great to learn something new. I would just say, just do, right? Dive into XD, dive into whatever application you feel comfortable in, and create something. Go on Dribble or Behance, find something that really strikes your eye and recreate it just for personal use and just to learn how certain elements are built. You just got to keep going.
Absolutely. And for all of you in chat, make sure that you set a reminder to tune in this Friday, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, to hang out and watch office hours with us. That's what we've been working on these last couple of days. We'll be doing a design off where you hang out in Discord with us and you're able to design along Nick and I. So set a reminder for that. And we will see you all on the next stream here on Adobe Live. And I will see you on Friday. Oh, puppy cameo. Bye.
Bye-bye.